Hello everyone, I'm making a general overview on Source Filmmaker. Today I'll be making just a poster. I'll probably put it as a thumbnail. Yeah, and I'll feature all the basic and more complicated, features and things you can do with Source Filmmaker to make a poster. Right, obviously you've got to launch Source Filmmaker first. SDK you're only going to use if you want to mess around with, texture fixes and stuff like that. Yeah, if you have any questions in the comments, I'll definitely respond, at least within a week of me posting the video. Alright, so, we've gotten into the SFM session. Now, you're only going to get this notification if you've set SFM to render movies in 1080p. So you're probably not going to get this window if you're brand new to Source Filmmaker. Let's see here. I'll just name this, what would I want the poster to be? Obviously, you need to think of what the poster is going to be before you make it. Let's have a scout. Let's have a scout just leaning on a wall. So we'll call it Scout Leaning on Wall. Now, I'm gonna hit create. Gonna wait a bit because it loads the session. Oftentimes it would say not responding up at the top. That's alright. That's normal for SFM to buffer while, loading maps, loading projects, stuff like that. It's always gonna say not responding. Don't worry about it. You can tell that the project loads if you see your title at the top here, and if you see this little timeline thing pop up, which is what you want. Now, you're going to right-click on this window, you're going to click Load Map. Now, actually, if your Source Filmmaker layout looks different than mine, that's alright. If you're completely new to SFM, there's only going to be one window here. If you want a second window, you go to Windows, you go to Secondary Viewport, you select that. It's going to pop up as a window there. You can actually drag the tab here and put it wherever you want. I just have mine next to my primary viewport. I just like the two views. Now, let's see. Let's have it be on Pastime Brickyard. That works. You can open up the map. SFM takes the longest for loading. Pretty much with maps. Maps are the longest thing to take for loading for SFM. Unless you're exporting like a giant poster or a giant movie, you're gonna probably be waiting the longest for the map to load. Alright, so, our map loaded. Usually you'll get a view like this, just from the spawn room. It's alright, no need to fear. We just need to click right here. What I usually do is change scene camera and make a new camera right off the bat. It'll sync your viewports so that you can look around. Also, if your SFM is flashing whenever you move around your camera, you should go, because I had that problem, you should go to Windows, Engine Window, and unclick Auto Hide Engine Window. And that'll just make it so that this thing isn't being hidden. Which is just, it's pretty much, it's for recording gameplay, which I'm not going to do here. Now, in a lot of maps, you're going to get this issue. I'm going to be honest with you, folks. It's really unavoidable. I have no clue how to get rid of these things. Yeah. But I'll just go to a place in the map that doesn't have those, because those are annoying. Sometimes they go away. I think it's because of, the shine of metal. I don't think the material loads or something like that. It's only on some particular maps, though. And not that many, like popular maps like, you know, CTF2 Fort and, you know, High Tower are gonna have these. Mostly the weirder maps like Pastime. Let's say I would want the scout leaning on this wall. We'll do that. Now, got my camera set up out here. Looks good so far to just have a base camera. I did just click this to go to the work camera. I'm gonna zoom out here. Now, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna right click on the screen. I'm gonna uncheck enable lighting. That just makes it so that, you know, you can look at details that won't be, you know, blocked out by shadows or anything like that, because we are going to be replacing all the lighting here with our custom stuff, with our custom lighting. Now, let's load up a model. You click the plus, go to create animation set for new model. Oftentimes you'll have to wait for the MDL files to completely load. So I want a scout, right? If I search scout, I'm gonna get a bunch of cosmetics. I'm gonna get workshop stuff like this Fem Scout. I'm gonna get a lot of stuff, you know, cosmetics, more cosmetics, mostly cosmetics. And that's just from Team Fortress 2, right? I'm assuming that you've manually updated your Team Fortress 2 by now. It's a common thing that most people should do. I'll probably link the video to manually updating SFM in the description. If I just wanted a scout that had, like, since I'm gonna not have that many cosmetics, I'll go with the HWM TF Movies scout, right? I go to the mod filter, and I select TF_movies. That'll just bring up the scout from the TF movies. I'll open it. Since I want to toggle a lot of the features, also to move your models, you should go down under this timeline text and then go to the motion editor here. That will allow you to move it. There's this little bubble thing here. I don't like that very much. These 4 buttons here, I've no clue what this does. But this one is the global movement. So, you know, up and down, side to side, forward, you know, the planes, and just based on your current screen. We'll talk about the graph editor later, but always make sure that you have the motion editor selected when you're moving things. Now, if I want the scout to be on the ground, I can hold this down. I'm going to hold down left shift. I'm going to move him just a little bit, and that snaps him to the ground, which I think is a very nice feature. I can adjust my camera. Now, say if I wanted this scout to be blue. I'd right click on him, go down to set skin, and I'd set him to skin 1. I want to put a hat cosmetic on this scout. But how do you remove the hat? Well, you can right click on him, go to set body groups, you can remove the hat, and do the same thing, and you can remove the headphones. There. And you've got scout without a hat or headphones. Now, what hat would I want to use, right? Let's say I wanted to use the Fortunate Son. What I'm going to do first is, since Source Filmmaker has a lot of file names that differ from the actual name of the cosmetic, what I do is I go to my Google. Once my Google loads,
6.5 hours later,
I'm going to search up Gmod item IDs. I know what you're thinking. Vaporized? This is Gmod, not Source Filmmaker. All Valve games use the same file names. So, no matter if you're in Gmod, no matter if you're in Source Filmmaker. Now, this guide is great. I'll link the guide down in the description below, but it lists all of the cosmetics for each and every class and what their file name is. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click Control F, and I'm going to search Fortunate Son. Now, CC underscore summer 2015 underscore fortunate underscore son. I'm just going to copy that right there. Go back to my source Filmmaker. I'm going to add another model. I'm going to go to all mods for the filter. And delete that scout. And I'm going to paste in just that name. There it is, ladies and gentlemen, the Fortunate Son. Now, on this list, sometimes they miss a cosmetic. Like, I know that for the Shelmet. Exactly, like, look at the comment here. You're gonna find some things like that. There's no need to worry. You can always just look up on Google, you know, source Filmmaker, Shelmet file name, and you'll be all set. I'll load in the Fortunate Son here. Now, how do I get the Fortunate Son here? Let me actually set the skin to blue team. Now, how do I get this cosmetic on the scout? You may have seen a video that you open up these things and you individually move the thing from the subject onto the cosmetic. But there's a much, much easier way to do this. And that is to simply take the scout and drag him onto the cosmetic you want for him. Select the cosmetic, and you drag on the 0 meter all the way to the right, and bam, it's on him. Now then, you've got the scout with the Fortunate Son. Also, if you're gonna put a shirt cosmetic on this scout, for some reason, the TF Movies scout is not super great for shirt cosmetics. I have no clue why. I don't know. Anyways, so we want to pose the scout to be leaning on the wall, yes? I will adjust the camera here, just to view him better. Now, I will set him to the wall. I'm going to click this for my rotate tool. We're going to move him like that. Now, a lot of the time, you're gonna run into things like this where the bag is in the way. You can actually right-click on the scout, take his pack, and click none. It's a little weird, it's a little strange, but if you wanted him with the pack, I guess you could have the bag clipping through the wall, but it may not look as good. I could just, you know, lean him into the wall and call it a day, but no. I want my poster to be detailed. I want my poster to look like it was very well worked on. It took a lot of time to make. That's exactly what I'm going to do. First off, let's right-click the scout. Let's go down to Rig. Then let's go to Rig _ biped _ simple. That is going to make it so that when you expand the scout with the plus button, it's going to give you rig body, rig legs, and rig arms. We can ignore the face for now. So what this rig does is it makes it very easy and very simple for you to manipulate a scout's body. Just going to fast forward through posing him here. Folks, be very generous, with, bending the bones and stuff, like the spine here, because, you want your poster to look professional. You want it to look less, reference posy as possible. Also, after snapping your character to the ground, always move his pelvis just a little bit down, and you can get some good leg bend action in there. Now, I usually deal with the arms without the rig on. Just preference of mine. but it varies depending on what you want to do. Like if you want a person to be grabbing something, like in a car, say you wanted them to be, holding onto the steering wheel, I would understand why, you would use a rig, because then you'd just be able to position the hand right on the steering wheel. Alright. Now, to remove the rig, we go to rig, detach rig. If you just clicked on that, it would mess up the group where the fingers are in. It doesn't change anything, but it just makes it strange in the list. So what I usually do is just hit detach all. It's gonna lag a bit. Once your scout list changes, you'll have your regular controls back again. Now, say if I wanted the scout to be leaning his neck down a little bit, like sort of lazy-ish. Maybe he can look like he's waiting, so he can just be looking around a bit. Now then, what do we want him to be doing with his hands, with his arms? Let's have him put his hand in his pocket. So since it's going into his pocket, I'm gonna put Scout back onto his biped simple rig. I will put his hand into his pocket. Now, that looks a bit strange, right? Just the angle of the arm. So I can actually take his collarbone here. I can move it up a little bit. There we go. That makes some space between the arm and the hand. Still don't like how that exactly looks. So I'll do some minor adjustments here. And there we go. We've got him with his hand in his pocket. Now, I'm just gonna have the other arm just hang down, just like he's putting his hand in his pocket, and he's just... Let's just make him have a loose fist with his hand here. Just have it be hanging down. Ooh, I know what to do. You can have his shoulder tiny bit back against the wall. And then I can have his hand. Let's actually edit that in the... without a rig. Because then I can just angle the parts of the arm individually instead of basing it around his hand. And there we go. Maybe we can have his arm a tiny bit bent like that. Hands down here, also a tiny bit bent. We'll position the camera probably about right here. His right fingers. Now here is a trick I recently learned, where you can select the index finger, hold down left shift, then select the pinky finger and let go of left shift. You can actually go into the graph editor here, which, unlike the motion editor, it bends each bone individually. Note, never ever position your model based on using the graph editor. There, made a loose fist. Let's see. Now, let's position the camera a bit. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use the rule of thirds. Which the rule of thirds is that your subject, or your main part of the poster, takes up either 1 or 2/3 of your poster. This is seen in a lot of... Even in Meet the Team, it's seen a lot. Now, if I'm moving the camera around, I can actually, while holding down the mouse here on this screen, I can use my mouse wheel to adjust the FOV of it. And I highly suggest you not use the default FOV. Also, Z and X are your up and down. Yeah, I believe that looks pretty good. Now I want to pose the face. Usually the stock face makes him look, I guess, content. But we'll change that. Also, I highly suggest you don't pose the fingers, the face, or anything that would be in this unknown region with this biped rig on, as it is very laggy with the controls. Now, I would like to move his eyes a little bit over here. Maybe just looking around, maybe just up a bit. You know, stuff like that. Give him a tiny frown so that his eyebrows go out a bit. Maybe a bit annoyed with who he's waiting for, who knows. We can actually use multi-close lid to make him look bored. Not tired, but bored. We can open his eyes a bit. A little bit of flair on his mouth, like, you know, just tiny bit annoyed at waiting. I could go to lip up. I can use a slider to have either the left or the right side of the face be controlled. Right here, I'm gonna have the top part of his lip go up a bit, like that, and the low part of his lip, still on the left side, also go up. This is gonna create a sort of, you know, annoyed-ish waiting effect. I'm going to go to the mid face and use nose V, because since his mouth is going up, probably his nose would go up like that as well. Let's see. Yeah, I believe that's it. I'm gonna have his jaw be a tiny bit clamped. And there we go. That is clipping. The dog tags. We can go to the unknown tab. 0, 1, 2, and 3 are all controls in the dog tag. 0 is just in the middle of the neck. 1 is actually at the back. Just the 1 here. Usually just the 1 if I'm adjusting the dog tags. This applies for stuff like the bullet pack that's on Sniper's chest, you know, Medic's lab coat, stuff like that. And there we go. It's actually, since he's moving that shoulder up by the law of gravity, actually move that a bit that way. Let's also have a tiny bit of a twist here. There we go. Now then. So, Scout's just standing there waiting. Yeah. I believe that's it for the posing. So we pose the fingers, pose the legs, spine, face, unknown section. Now, if we were to enable the lighting back on, in my opinion, that doesn't look very good. Also, make sure to save your work a lot, especially right at this time. Since there isn't much lighting here, I could just light up this area, but I would highly suggest getting rid of the lighting altogether. How do I do that? Well, let me show you a little file trick here. You go into your Source Filmmaker tab. This light deleter is not there by default. I will leave a link to this in the description. I will say right now, though, always follow the README for the installation. For a lot of people, this can make your game crash. If you install it correctly and are trying to use it correctly, and it still makes your game and/or computer crash, I wouldn't know how to help you there. Now, open here. We'll open TF. And we'll go to Maps. And we are using... You can just click right about there, right next to something, so you don't select anything. You can just search, you know, pass, PASS, no. Alright. If you can't find your map, you unload your map. Don't worry, your models and your positioning is still there. it's not in a map currently. I'll save that. And you click load map. Now then. Oh, it's in user mode. Yes, okay. Alright. So the reason why I had that lighting issue before was because it was a custom transferred map. That is why. Here we are, past Brickyard. Now, we drag past Brickyard onto the light deleter. We'll open this spiffy little window that will automatically put in some coding for you. And all this is doing is removing all light particles and all sun effects and stuff like that. It creates for you a no lights version. Now you can click load map. And all you gotta do is delete the last 4 pieces. Click rescan up there. And then click on Brickyard no lights. Oh yeah. Or whatever map you're using, and then no lights. Now, you see that it's loaded the map. It's completely dark, and that's good. Because you successfully removed the lights from your map. Yep, pretty much. And, how are you gonna get your own custom lighting, you may ask? We can go right to this plus sign, and do create animation set for new light. And that'll create you a new light. Now, this light doesn't look that good. It really doesn't. And you could move it around with these, but what I would do is you can actually take this light and drag it onto one of your viewports, and then you can move your light as if it's a camera. Quite interesting, huh? Now, let's say if I wanted the sun to be about here. Now that doesn't look like a sun, does it? What we're gonna do, we're gonna back this boy up far, 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 far distance. And I know what you're thinking. Vaporize matter? Frickin', it's still dark in the camera shot. What are you doing? What I am doing is I'll show you how to increase the range of your light. First off, you right click on a slider, you click remap slider range. I usually add 2 or 3 zeros here. And then to the maximum set. I will also do this with max distance, which is the maximum distance of your light. As well as far Z atin, which far Z atin is actually like the more precise version of max distance. But you have to turn both of those ups at the same time, or like both of those up to increase the distance. So I'll turn that all the way up, and I'll turn that all the way up. If you're using volumetrics, I would suggest you turn these up to the point where it reaches whatever subject you want it to reach, but I would highly suggest against using volumetrics for your sun. Now we increase the intensity just a little bit, and there we go. Now, that looks absolutely horrible, now doesn't it? Don't worry about it. Don't worry a thing. What we're gonna do, we're gonna scroll down here, and we're gonna lower the blue scale just a little bit, just so that it's got more of that yellowish sort of sun color. By the way, if you want moonlight, you do the opposite. You lower the red and you lower the green so that it's a sort of bluish kind of light. I'm gonna be doing a sun for this one. Now, you've got your sun. Let's increase the intensity a bit here. That looks more like daytime. Now, your shadows are gonna look weird. I'm gonna tell you that at first. They're gonna look weird just with this one light. Right click, select render settings. This is important, gonna be important later. You're gonna unclick motion blur unless, you know, if you put a moving part in, like a particle, and you want it to have motion blur. But that's not super common for posters. You're gonna go to depth of field. You're gonna set it to 1024. That's probably the best for it. Click OK. You're gonna see no difference as of right now. But when you click on the clip editor and you wait just a little bit, you can see on the right there, all that sort of jittery graininess is gone, and it looks more smooth of a light, right? Now, it's going to look off. It is going to look off. I highly suggest something that will absolutely save your life in a lot of situations. You take the radius, and you turn it up just a bit. I'll turn it up a little less than half here. See how it goes. I go back to my clip editor. Radius doesn't show in the motion editor, unlike, you know, intensity and max distance, but it does show in the clip editor after it does that little pre-render. If I turn up the radius even more, it basically makes the light look softer. Actually going to remap that, increase the maximum to 500. Increasing the maximum radius isn't common, and you're probably not gonna really want to do that often, but it still comes in handy. Now that looks pretty good for the light, at least for the sunlight. Actually going to adjust it a little bit here and make it look more midday like. You're gonna have the problem of black models, and I think the best thing to do is for lowering your max distance and your far Z at. You actually remap the max distance here and turn it down a bit. So I can do that. And there we go. You just need to adjust it so that's just right about where your subject is. Now that we've got that covered, it still looks a bit weird. That's because when the sun shines down onto the ground, it creates reflection. And that reflection, lightens the shadows of a lot of things. Gonna create a new light. Put it to the screen here. What we're gonna do, gonna have it be sort of a reflectant. Don't worry, it's not gonna look this strange for long. Take my word for it. You're gonna shine it on your subject here. I'm gonna adjust it so it doesn't shine on that wall that much. There we go. Now, lower that intensity a lot. Just about to there. What we're gonna do is we're gonna lower the red and we're gonna lower the green values. So that's sort of a bluish shadow. Because it's a similar effect with shadows as, the sky. It makes it blue. We will lower the intensity. You can double click here to adjust it more finely. That looks interesting, but let's up the radius a bit. Your radius is also going to act as a very, very, very precise intensity. So you can actually up your intensity of a few things. And let's see how that pre-renders. It looks pretty interesting. I will move that there, and I'll decrease the field of view of that. Move that a bit over there. We will actually disable the shadows here so that it takes up all of the shadows. And there we go. Excellent. Now, if you wanted sort of a more foggy day, which I want sort of a more foggy day, you can actually, motion editor here, actually put another light right about there. Lower the intensity of it. Up its radius a bit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on the light. Click enable volumetrics. We are going to increase that volumetric intensity a little bit. And there we go. It's going to look like sort of like a ray of light almost. We'll save that right there. And let's see. Pre-render once again in the clip editor. Through this segment, I tinkered around with the lights a lot, just switching back between the motion and clip editor. Just seeing how the radius of the lights interacted with each other. And I would suggest you do that for a while until you're happy with how, your stuff turns out. I didn't say much important things. You can always ask me a question in the comments if you're trying to deal with lighting. I would highly suggest, though, that you check out another video for lighting, as this is just for basic posing and basic lighting. Just a quick, tried to be quick at least, video on the basic functions of Source Filmmaker. I'm going to show you guys a neat little camera trick. We go to create animation sets for existing elements. most of the time, unless you record, the in-game feature, the gameplay feature, there's mostly just going to be your cameras there. You hit OK. What I like to do for adjusting things here is, obviously, we can adjust the bloom here, so how much things glow. Actually, turn that up a bit. You can adjust the SSAO, which is sort of like the shadows, I guess. Now, two different things. There's focal distance, and then there's aperture. So focal distance is where you want your subject to be, so you can move that around. I would highly suggest moving it so that it clips with the subject that you want. And then aperture, the more you turn it up, the more the background will be blurred, because that's the focal distance. The camera's focusing on the subject, but blurring anything besides the subject, the foreground, the background, etc. I usually turn the aperture up just a tiny bit for some things. I don't believe it shows up in the pre-render. No, it does not. But after you render your poster, it will show up. Alright, for rendering your poster, well, first, obviously make sure that your render settings are set for that depth of field. Ambient occlusion. Now, ambient occlusion's sort of like a second layer for shadowing. Now, if you just show the ambient occlusion here, it looks cool. It looks cool if you have AO only, but probably, unless you're making like some kind of concept, poster or something like that, I would suggest against having that on for a render. You can also render with an outline and without your ambient occlusion. If you turn it off altogether, you turn off AO, then it looks a bit strange. Anyways, now what we're gonna do is we're gonna export it as a poster. Gonna select PNG because TGA file will always be rendered, but PNG is the most, malleable of image formats. You're gonna go to the dots. If you've already chosen where you want your output's gonna be, it's gonna automatically go there. So we'll do scout, meaning on wall. Save. We're gonna export the poster. Gonna have this little window pop up. And that's just the exporting window. You could alter your dimensions. I would strongly suggest either sticking with 1080p, or if you're having a much more detailed poster, you could go with 4K. But any lower than 1080p, and it starts looking a bit low quality of an image. Yeah, so I would highly recommend depth of field 1024, the highest setting of depth of field, and then that. If your poster render window disappears, you can click back in here and check to see if it properly rendered. If you can click around the windows and stuff with it having that little grayish, whitish outline, then your render is complete. You can save your work, minus out of source Filmmaker, and you can look in your SFM posters folder. You can open it, just in photos or whatever, and you can see how it came out. Well, everyone, if you'd like to do photo editing of it, you can look up things on your own time. This is just to get used to source Filmmaker stuff. I will, although, leave a link down below in the description for a free and totally legal version of Photoshop. Have an excellent day, all of you, and thank you. As long as you devote time and effort to your posters, they'll turn out excellent, I'm sure. There's nothing I hate more in this world than a lazy poster.